So before we jump to the topic, I think I want to go through a bit on the history of perp trading products within crypto. I think Ivan mentioned the very first perp product is actually done up by BitMEX. It's a SEX, and that was in 2016, and they only do BTC-based products at the start. So shortly after, from 2017 to 19, a lot of other sectors joined into the bandwagon, right? So like Huobi, Binance, Bitfinex, they launched perp products for multiple tokens because they given more fees. And then I think as for the perp DEX, the very first one that was launched, the very first few that was launched is probably DYDX and also Injective in early 2021. So with this historical context, we now get the ball rolling. So despite perpetuals being a very popular trading product, there's a very vast difference in the ratio between perp volume and spot volume. So what I mean by that is on sexes, during the DeFi summer, the perp market is 3 times bigger than the spot market. And as for DEXs, the perp market is only at 50% of the spot market. So what do you guys think is the reason for this? Anyone can take it. It's an open question.
If I knew, then our volume would be much higher. No, just kidding. I think one of the reasons is definitely something I mentioned just now. A lot of apps nowadays, they are very single purpose. So for users, it's just so much simpler to just deposit on one platform like Binance, and you really just do everything, right? You can trade spot, you can lend, you can yield farm, and that's what users are used to. Of course, there are other secondary reasons like onboarding, wallets, being able to just use your email to log in. That's what people are comfortable with. I do think there's a lot of advancement in both aspects for DEXs, and I think that the future is not set in stone yet.
Yeah, I agree with what Ivan said. I think there is still a long way to go, and I think this sentence can be understood in both ways, which also means that there's a lot of opportunities for people, for ourselves and also people out there who's developing DEXs. Because I think there's still a long way to go, and eventually, somehow, it will have to be consolidated in a way that Binance is doing right now, where it's a one-stop for you to do everything. But I think at the moment, right now, there's still a lot of opportunities out there for us to explore. Perps has still a lot of appeal. It's still quite appealing to a lot of people who's doing trading, and it's still quite new to maybe within people here. It's something that we take it for granted. We talk about perps and we're very familiar with perps. But if you talk to people outside the blockchain community, I would say that 9 out of 10 people still don't know what perps are, and so I think there's still a lot of opportunity there before that consolidation, so to speak, comes in, right?
The question was, there's more volume, spot volume than perp volume on DEX, right?
As compared to SEX.
I think there are, from our opinion, there are a few reasons. Number one is that our perp markets on DEX are less as compared to SEX in the trading pair-wise. Secondly, when you launch a perp market on DEX, you need liquidity, which is something very challenging to get. On Helix, our DEX, one of the DEX built on top of Injective, we actually have a couple of DEX that are built by other members of the network. So on Helix, we have this thing called OLP program. I think it's called Open Liquidity Program, where we have a lot of market makers providing liquidity in exchange for rewards. So that keeps the spread lesser or tighter and comparable with SEXs. Yeah. So for DEX to provide what SEX providing on top of the user experience wise, I think the spread is also one of the key factor. And if the spread is not attractive, then the volume won't be here. Yeah.
Actually, you brought a good point on there's less markets in the DEX component for perps, because for spot market you can win your own token, go to Uniswap at LP, and suddenly you have a market for the spot market straight away, which I believe is also the reason why there's a lot of spot volume on DEXs. during the DeFi summer. People were just aping into the coins, when they're selling the coins, making a lot of money in the process. Yeah. We move on to the second question. So, personally, I've seen a lot of different approaches, right, to how people, different teams try to incentivize trading volume. So, first one being, giving fee rebates directly back to the traders, also known as trade mining. And second one, by incentivizing passive market makers to provide liquidity and you emit tokens to them. So while these are potentially, these kind of strategies can potentially kickstart a flywheel effect, I think it's very hard to determine the kind of organic and sustainable demand from the trading activities itself. In fact, I took a look at Token Terminal today. There is 0 perpetual protocols out there that have made more cumulative earnings in dollars as compared to the token emissions paid out. 0. In fact, DYDX was negative $500 million. So it's quite a big amount of emissions being given out to mercenaries, in my opinion. So what's your take on such strategies, and do you think there are better alternatives to this to drive organic demand?
I think it's definitely not sustainable. I think a lot of these incentives is there's a good reason for them to exist, for sure. But trading at its core is a zero-sum game. So if you want to have true organic growth for crypto trading, we really have to just expand the pie. We really need to just find more people I mentioned in my previous answer as well that we need to find more people outside our blockchain community to come in to play with us, to trade. That's the true organic growth. But within the blockchain, growth can always be split into two aspects. One is that, and the other one is within our own community. How do we get more people to trade? And then I think the other thing that we always talk about is efficiency. I think trading exists for, very broadly speaking, two kinds of reasons. One is because there's inefficiency in the markets and you're trying to make profit or...
Not for the tech.
Well, from a trade, yeah, you can say it's for the tech, but I think from a trading point of view, it's really purely just to either take advantage of or to improve the efficiency. So in a way, you can say that by improving the efficiency, it is to improve the tech. Because I give you an example, like a lot of our perpetuals, the way they sustain the pegging of the price to the actual spots is through arbitrage, which is basically leveraging on the fact that markets are inefficient and we arbitrage. And when you arbitrage, then the trade volumes, and henceforth things happen. So as I mentioned, in order for trades to happen, it's either for you to really want to make money out of it, or you actually want to improve or take advantage of the market efficiencies. But again, if you look at a very, very broad picture, right, a bird's eye view, you see at least from outer space, it's still the same circle. And eventually, you just have to expand that circle in order for you to increase the liquidity or whatsoever to truly address the problem that I just mentioned. That's my belief now.
You guys have anything to add?
Yeah, so I think for trade mining, it's a incentive, it's like a marketing incentive, right? And to me, it's not really a matter of whether it's sustainable. It's something that is almost necessary. You need to spend to get the eyeballs, to get the attraction. So for example, for DYDX, I think they didn't have much volume until they didn't have much eyes or market makers, in fact, until they did the trade mining scheme. And it's no different from like Shopee or Lazada or whatever, giving you a $5 voucher to buy something for free just so you download the app and use the app. So I think it's something that must be done. But of course, at the end of the day, it's about keeping them there. And that's why the whole experience still must be as good as centralized exchange. You need liquidity. And I think for me, really, there's no point doing a trade mining program if you don't have liquidity. That's why we didn't do it yet. We are instead trying to build liquidity protocols, trying to build schemes where you can attract and retain liquidity in the perpetual markets. So there are a few perp dexes that sort of manage to hack around it. So like GMX, GNS, they manage to attract quite a bit of liquidity. And I think using this model and translating it to order book dex is probably one of the key things that must be done, unless you're really, really well funded, of course. Yeah, so I mean, that's something that we are looking at exploring as well. Yes.
For me, my opinion is that this growth through campaigns are not organic, like they say. Yeah, but I think the most important thing that we have to remember is that why do users use DEX? It's because there is security risk when you use a DEX. And like the two of them, I'm sure we go through the same headaches of like how to improve the user experience to be as close as possible to a DEX while providing the same number of features that a DEX provides. Because building a feature on a DEX to provide the same user experience on a DEX it could be 3x, 5x harder technically. So that's what we try to do. And also on top of just providing trading, we also try to include like other aspects of DeFi. For example, lending, NFTs, or anything that users might be interested in. So the whole initiative is to bring users into the world of DEX or holding their own funds using, I don't know, MetaMask, Ledger, or any wallet they want, and then from there educate them to become organic growth. Yeah, that's what we do.
Okay, cool. I have no questions. We will now open the questions to the floor if there's any. Anyone has questions on the floor?
I might go.
Hey, hi Zed.
Yeah, hey. So I have actually two questions. One is that the perps market is getting crowded nowadays. How do you guys see this going forward? And will we see some consolidation in the market? And if there is a consolidation, how would the consolidation happen tech-wise? Because different perps actually built on different architecture and different layer one. So how would that happen if it happens? This is the first question. The second one is that what are your views on RWA, and would there be any regulatory risk listing RWA on DEXs? Yeah, thanks.
Anyone?
I'll do the second one on the risk with RWA. I shared it from my personal experience. At Injective, we are based in New York, and we are very what's the word? We are very obedient. I don't know what's the right word for this. Compliant with the SEC. And if you read the news enough, you will realize that they are very hard to follow or confusing to understand. So RWA wise, from the Injective point of view, is that we do have like what I mentioned earlier, we have Beef Oracle that technically enables you to do things related to RWA or debt. But Injective can't build it themselves. But if you build a debt on Injective, you can use these features that that we already provide, and then you can build RWA. So it's not impossible to see it. Yeah. So we just need some devs or builders to do it. Yeah.
I actually want to touch on the first question. I don't think consolidation is a tech problem, because tech can always be forked and implemented. It's an issue of how do you merge two separate token communities. Yeah, like how do you define a fair ratio between two separate tokens trading at two different market cap and existing for two different types of token holders. I mean, last year during April's Fool, Osmosis actually posted April Fool prank and saying that they were going to combine with Cosmos Hub on a one-to-one basis. So I guess there will be some kind of token swap involved, but how do you place both community and come to a conclusion? Because everyone will think that their token is superior to the other. Yeah, so it's more of a token community question. How do you handle those community members, right? Those back holders. So, and less of a tech question. That's my take.
I'll try to answer the first part of the first question, which is so we take turns, we cut into small pieces, and everyone answers small bit. So that first part of the first question is whether the consolidation would happen, and I personally think it won't happen anytime soon. And the reason for that is, something that I've partially attributed to earlier, that the market is still big. DeFi is still at its all-time low after its peak. And so a lot of developers just buying their own time. And it's the cost to build your own perps is much lower than trying to compete and consolidate your competitors at the moment. There's just so much space out there for you to explore and build on. Why would you want to compete with your neighbor to buy over his place so that you can own this whole space, right? So my short answer to the first part of the first question is I don't think consolidation will happen anytime sooner, but I do believe it will happen eventually, and I also agree with Michael that when it does happen, I think tech wouldn't be the bottleneck.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add to the very good answers. For consolidation wise, yeah, I do think for trading, it's mainly a winner takes most game. So like 80%, like the top 10% of Texas win like 90% of the volume. And then the question comes into play, which is if you want to actually take over the other decks, is it worth it? So at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. The more interesting question is like whether can anyone beat, say, DYDX or GMX, etc. And I do think there's for that aspect there's large opportunities still. Especially because it's just way easier to get new users and just get users from their trading on Bybit or Binance. For the second question, for me, it's all about who takes the regulatory risk. We can all say it's decentralized. So again, I keep mentioning DYDX. I'm not a big fan of them, but they're doing a lot of things right. Because, for example, they are focusing a lot on the decentralization of the user interface as well. I think that's really going to be the next big thing. To actually credibly be permissionless and censorship resistant, you need the entire stack of your technology, of your infrastructure to be decentralized. If not, then you'll be doing a lot of regulatory arbitrage, right? Where you operate a company in different regions where it's okay to do it. But if you can say that, okay, now it's like a system like Bitcoin where anyone can access the user interface, and because it's so credibly decentralized like Bitcoin, there's no one to actually find, no one to actually take down, then now you have a viable, plausible way to list RWAs or fundamentals in the tech stocks, in the tech assets. Yeah.
Any more questions from the floor? No more questions? Okay, if there's no more questions, then I think we come to the end of the panel discussion. Huge thank you to the speakers and also to SG Innovate for providing the venue.